The sound of 40 children laughing stopped so suddenly, it was like someone had pressed mute on the world. I was carrying a tray of juice boxes from the kitchen when I heard the clown's voice boom across my backyard. "This little girl isn't really her mommy's daughter." Every parent who'd stayed for the party turned to stare. Every child stood frozen, their balloon animals dropping to the grass. And there, in the center of it all, was my 8-year-old daughter, Meadow, wearing her special birthday dress and flower crown, her face transforming from joy to complete devastation as the words kept coming. "She's adopted. That means her real mommy and daddy didn't want her." I'm Juliana, and I'm about to tell you how my sister Ramona orchestrated the cruelest moment of my daughter's life at her own birthday party, how she paid a clown named Dennis Crowell to announce my daughter's adoption to 40 kids, like it was some kind of twisted party trick, how I found my baby girl hiding in a closet 5 hours later, asking me if she was broken, and how what started as a family birthday party ended in a courtroom with a judge's decision that made headlines across Ohio. My sister thought she was teaching my daughter a lesson about truth. Instead, she taught me that sometimes the people who share your blood are the ones most capable of drawing it. She taught me that protecting your child means being willing to fight anyone who tries to break them, even if that person is your own family. And she taught 48-year-olds at that party that adults can be monsters hiding behind painted smiles. But most importantly, this is the story of how my daughter Meadow learned she wasn't given away because she wasn't wanted. She was chosen because she was precious. And how one horrible moment at a birthday party became the catalyst for changing adoption conversation laws in our entire state. The clown my sister hired thought he was delivering a punchline. The judge delivered justice instead, and the amount he ordered my sister to pay was just the beginning of what she lost that day. 3 months before Meadow's 8th birthday, she asked me a question that made my heart skip. We were in the kitchen of our small house in Cincinnati, making Sunday morning pancakes, when she looked up at me with those bright green eyes and said, "Mama, why don't I look like you?" I'd been preparing for this conversation since the day I brought her home 7.5 years ago. The adoption agency had given me books, pamphlets, even a script for how to handle it. But standing there with flour in my hair and my daughter's trusting face looking up at me, every prepared word disappeared. "What makes you think you don't look like me?" I asked, buying time while flipping a pancake shaped like a butterfly, her favorite. "Carly at school said real families look alike. You have dark hair and brown eyes. Mine are different." I knelt down to her level. "Families are made of love, baby, not matching hair colors. And you're my real daughter in every way that matters." She seemed satisfied with that answer, but I knew the full conversation was coming. I just wanted it to happen on my terms, in my timing, when I could control the narrative and make sure she understood how deeply wanted she was. I'm Juliana Garrett, and I run a small bakery called Sweet Dreams on Morrison Avenue. It's nothing fancy, just a corner shop where I make wedding cakes and birthday treats. The income isn't much, but it kept us afloat and let me work my own hours to be there for Meadow. I'd opened it 2 years after adopting her, using my grandmother's life insurance money as startup capital. The adoption had been my miracle after 5 years of trying to conceive. 3 failed rounds of IVF had drained my savings and my marriage. My ex-husband Trevor had walked out when I suggested adoption, saying if he couldn't have his own kids, he didn't want any at all. The divorce papers were signed the same week I got the call about Meadow. She was 6 months old, born to teenage parents in Kentucky who wanted more for her than they could provide. The moment the social worker placed her in my arms, I understood what people meant by love at first sight. Her birth parents had named her Meadow, and I kept it. It was the one thing they could give her that I wouldn't change. My family's reaction had been mixed. My mother, living in Florida with my stepfather, had flown up immediately, crying happy tears when she held her first grandchild. "Biology doesn't make a family," she'd said. "Love does." But my older sister Ramona had been different from the start. She lived 20 minutes away in Indian Hill, the wealthy suburb where she sold luxury real estate. With her husband Paul's investment banking salary and her commissions, they lived in a house that could fit my entire home in their garage. She had twin boys, Colton and Bridget, conceived through expensive fertility treatments that she never let anyone forget about. "You're so brave," Ramona had said when she first met Meadow, though brave sounded like foolish in her tone, taking on someone else's responsibility. Over the years, her comments had gotten worse. At Christmas, she'd buy her twins expensive electronics while giving Meadow dollar store toys, saying, "I don't want to spoil someone else's child too much." At family dinners, she'd make pointed remarks about nature versus nurture when Meadow showed any stubbornness or difficulty. 2 weeks before the party, Ramona had surprised me by offering to help. We were having coffee at my bakery after closing time, and she'd seemed genuinely interested in making the party special. "You always do everything alone, Jules," she'd said, stirring her latte. "Let me hire the entertainment. I know you're stretched thin with the bakery." I should have known better. Ramona never did anything without an agenda, but I was exhausted from working extra hours to pay for party supplies, and her offer seemed like an olive branch. "That would be amazing," I'd said. "Meadow's been asking for a clown or magician." "Leave it to me," she'd replied with a smile that, looking back, should have warned me. The morning of February 15th, I woke at 5 to start decorating. The weather was surprisingly warm for winter, perfect for a backyard party. I strung lights across the trees, set up pink and purple tablecloths, arranged 40 party favor bags I'd assembled myself. The unicorn bounce house I'd rented stood proud in the corner of the yard. By noon, everything looked magical. Meadow danced around the yard in her new purple dress, the one she'd picked out specially, with a flower crown I'd made from silk roses and baby's breath. "This is the best day ever, Mama," she squealed, hugging me tight. I held her close, breathing in her strawberry shampoo scent, having no idea that in just 2 hours, her best day ever would become her worst nightmare. The party started at 2 o'clock sharp. Parents dropped their kids off, waving goodbye with promises to return at 5. Some stayed to help, including my neighbor Teresa and a few room mothers from Meadow's class. Within minutes, our backyard transformed into a symphony of children's laughter. I was in my element, directing games, serving snacks, making sure every child felt included. Meadow glowed with happiness, her face bright as she played with her friends. We'd just finished the relay race when Ramona's white Mercedes pulled into the driveway at 2:40. She stepped out wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the breeze. Behind her, a van painted with cartoon characters and Giggles and Grins Entertainment pulled up to the curb. "Where's my birthday girl?" Ramona called out, arms spread wide. Meadow ran to her, and Ramona gave her a quick, stiff hug before stepping back. "I brought you something special." The van's back doors opened, and out stepped a man in full clown costume. Red wig, white face paint, enormous shoes, the works. The children immediately swarmed around him, excitement rippling through the crowd. "Hello, boys and girls, I'm Bubbles the Magnificent," he announced, honking a horn attached to his belt. "Who wants to see some magic?" For 30 minutes, he was wonderful. He made balloon animals, pulled scarves from his sleeves, juggled tennis balls while riding a tiny unicycle. The kids were mesmerized. I actually relaxed, thinking maybe Ramona had finally done something genuine for Meadow. I was at the drink table with Teresa, refilling punch bowls and chatting about school fundraisers, when Bubbles called out, "Now, where's our special birthday girl? Meadow, come on up here." Meadow practically floated to the front, her friends cheering. The clown positioned her in the center of the yard where everyone could see. I smiled, reaching for my phone to take a picture. "Boys and girls, gather round. I have something very important to tell you about the birthday girl." His voice had changed, taking on an odd, almost menacing tone that made me look up from my phone. "Today we're going to learn a special secret." He pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket, making a show of unfolding it. My stomach started to tighten, though I couldn't say why. This little girl here, this birthday girl, she's not really Juliana's daughter. The words hit me like ice water. I dropped the ladle I was holding, punch splashing across the table. "She's adopted," he continued, his voice carrying across the yard. "Do you kids know what that means? It means her real mommy and daddy didn't want her, so they gave her away." 40 children stood in stunned silence. Parents who'd been chatting near the fence turned to stare. Meadow's face went from confused to horrified in a single second. "Just like when you don't want a toy anymore and give it to Goodwill," the clown went on, seemingly oblivious to the horror spreading across the yard. "Her first parents didn't want her, so now she lives here instead. Isn't that interesting, kids?" I was already running, but I felt like I was moving through quicksand. Meadow's eyes found mine across the yard, tears streaming down her face, her mouth open in a silent scream. Before I could reach her, she turned and bolted toward the house. "What are you doing?" I screamed at the clown, my voice raw. "What is wrong with you?" He stepped back, suddenly looking uncomfortable. "Hey, I was just reading what they gave me." I whirled around to find Ramona standing by the dessert table, arms crossed, a satisfied smirk playing at her lips. "She needed to know the truth, Juliana. You've been lying to her for years. You planned this?" My whole body shook. "You actually planned this?" "Children deserve honesty," she said, examining her manicured nails. "It's not healthy to keep secrets. Besides, she was going to find out eventually. Better from family than from strangers." "From family?" I was screaming now. "Family doesn't destroy children. Family doesn't hire someone to humiliate an 8-year-old at her birthday party." Parents were already gathering their children, horrified whispers spreading through the crowd. Some kids were crying, scared and confused by what they'd witnessed. Others kept asking their parents what adopted meant and why the birthday girl ran away. Teresa appeared at my elbow. "Go find Meadow. I'll handle this mess and get everyone out of here." The clown was hastily packing his supplies. I grabbed his arm. "You said someone gave you something to read. Show me." He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. There, in Ramona's distinctive handwriting, were the words that had just destroyed my daughter's world. "Announce that the birthday girl is adopted because her real parents didn't want her. Make sure all the kids hear it clearly. I'm paying you extra for this, so don't skip it." I crushed the paper in my fist and shoved past the clown, running into the house. "Meadow! Baby, where are you?" My voice echoed through empty rooms. I checked her bedroom first, tearing apart her closet, looking under the bed. Nothing. The bathroom was empty. The basement yielded only shadows. "Meadow, please, Mama needs to talk to you." For 5 agonizing hours, I searched. I looked in every room, every cupboard, behind every door. I crawled through the basement twice, checked the attic despite her fear of spiders, even searched the garage and my car. Teresa and 3 other parents stayed to help, walking the neighborhood in case she'd run to the park or a friend's house. "We should call the police," Teresa suggested around hour 3. "She's here," I insisted, my voice hoarse from calling. "She wouldn't leave. She's hiding somewhere in this house." As darkness fell, I stood in the hallway trying to think like an 8-year-old whose world had just shattered. Where would I go? Where would I feel safe enough to disappear? Then I heard it. A tiny muffled sob coming from the hall closet. I checked it earlier, but only quickly. This time I pushed past the hanging coats, past the winter boots, and there she was, curled into the tiniest ball possible, wedged behind the vacuum cleaner, her purple birthday dress torn at the hem. "Oh, baby," I breathed, my own tears finally coming. She looked up at me with swollen eyes. "Is it true? My real parents didn't want me?" I pulled her into my arms, feeling her whole body shaking. "Your birth parents loved you so much, Meadow. They were teenagers, just kids themselves. They wanted you to have everything they couldn't give you. A home, stability, parents ready to be parents. But Aunt Ramona said they threw me away." "Aunt Ramona lied. Your birth mother held you for 3 hours after you were born, crying because she loved you so much. She wrote you a letter. I've been saving it for when you were older. She didn't throw you away, baby. She placed you in my arms and asked me to love you the way she wished she could." "Why would Aunt Ramona say those things?" I held her tighter. "Because some people are broken inside in ways that make them want to break others. But we're not going to let her break us." That night, after Meadow finally fell asleep in my bed, her face still blotchy from crying, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and laptop. First, I called Patricia Holbrook, a lawyer who'd helped with my divorce and had become a friend. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said. I could hear her switching into professional mode. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Juliana, this is intentional infliction of emotional distress on a minor, in front of witnesses. You have grounds for a serious lawsuit against my own sister. Your sister paid someone to psychologically assault your child. This isn't about family anymore. It's about protecting Meadow and making sure there are consequences." My next call was to my mother in Florida. I'd barely gotten the story out before she exploded. I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. That's it. I'm done with Ramona. How dare she? How dare she? Mom, you don't have to come. Yes, I do. That baby needs her grandmother. And frankly, so do you. I spent the rest of the night documenting everything. I wrote down every word I could remember, created a timeline, made a list of every parent and child who'd been there. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from parents who'd heard what happened. We're horrified by what we witnessed, wrote Jennifer, mother of Meadows' friend Carly. Please let us know if you need statements for legal action. By morning, I had 17 written statements from parents. Teresa's was particularly powerful. The clown deliberately humiliated an 8-year-old child about her adoption status in a cruel and calculated manner. He announced to 40 children that she was unwanted by her birth parents. The child was visibly traumatized and fled the party. This was clearly premeditated, as the clown was reading from a script. I also discovered something else during my late-night research. Giggles and Grins Entertainment had multiple complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau. 3 previous incidents of inappropriate behavior at children's parties, though nothing approaching this level of cruelty. Patricia called back at 7 in the morning. I've done some research. We can file against both Ramona and the entertainment company. The company has liability insurance that we'll have to pay out. As for your sister, we can go after personal damages. What about Meadow? Won't a lawsuit make this worse for her? She'll have to give a statement, possibly testify. But Juliana, what's worse? Letting the people who did this face no consequences? Or showing Meadow that when someone hurts her, her mother will fight back with everything she has? The lawsuit took 14 months to reach trial. During that time, Ramona tried every manipulation tactic she knew. She called our mother daily, sobbing about how I was destroying the family. She showed up at my bakery during the morning rush, causing scenes that scared away customers. "You're suing me over telling the truth?" she screamed one morning, as a line of regulars backed toward the door. "I did that child a favor. Now she knows why she doesn't fit in." "Get out before I call the police," I said, my hands steady despite my rage. "And she fits in perfectly. You're the one who doesn't belong in our lives." She tried to rally family members to her side. Our cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone got calls about how I was overreacting, how I was traumatizing Meadow worse by pursuing legal action. Most of them had already heard the real story from Mom. They stopped taking her calls. The trial began on a cold April morning. Meadow, now 9, sat beside me in a navy dress, her hand in mine. She'd been preparing with a child psychologist for months, learning how to talk about that day without reliving the trauma. Patricia opened with the facts. A paid entertainer hired by the defendant had deliberately humiliated a child about her adoption status. The defendant had written a script specifically designed to cause emotional harm. 40 witnesses, 17 written statements, and 1 piece of damning evidence. The script in Ramona's handwriting. Dennis Craywell, the clown, took the stand first. Without his costume, he looked small and ordinary, a middle-aged man who did children's parties for extra income. "Mrs. Hutchinson paid me an extra $200 to read that script," he testified. "She said it was important the kid learn the truth and that this would be a memorable way to do it." "Did you have concerns about reading it?" Patricia asked. "I figured it was a weird family thing. Maybe they had some special way of handling it. She said she was the aunt, so I thought it was authorized." "But you knew it would hurt the child." He shifted uncomfortably. "I mean, yeah, it seemed harsh, but $200 extra is a lot for me." Ramona took the stand next, dressed in a conservative suit, trying to look sympathetic. She maintained her position that she'd done nothing wrong. "Children shouldn't be lied to," she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "My sister was creating a fantasy that would eventually crumble. I was trying to help." "By publicly humiliating an 8-year-old? Patricia pressed. "By ensuring she knew her truth." "Mrs. Hutchinson, do you have children?" "Yes, twins, Colton and Bridget." "Have you ever hired someone to announce personal information about them to 40 of their peers?" "That's different. They're not adopted." "So adopted children deserve public humiliation." "I didn't say that." "But you did exactly that." The biggest shock came when Patricia called a surprise witness. Bridget, Ramona's own 16-year-old daughter, had asked to testify. "My mom has always been jealous of Meadow," Bridget said, her voice clear and strong. She says things like, "It's not fair that an adopted kid gets more attention than real grandchildren," and calls Meadow Jules' charity case when she thinks we're not listening. The courtroom was silent. Ramona's face went white. "She planned the whole thing for weeks," Bridget continued. "I heard her on the phone with the clown company, specifically asking if they had someone who would read a custom script. She laughed about it with her friend Diane, saying, 'This will teach Jules not to parade that kid around like she's special.'" When Meadow testified, she spoke clearly despite her tears. "I felt like everyone was looking at me like I was garbage someone threw away, like I didn't belong anywhere. I couldn't go back to school for 2 weeks because kids kept asking if my real parents hated me." Judge Harold Brenneker, a grandfather of 6, listened to everything with increasing disgust. When it came time for his ruling, his voice was sharp with controlled anger. "This court finds the defendants guilty of intentional infliction of emotional distress upon a minor child. The deliberate, premeditated public humiliation of an 8-year-old regarding her adoption status is not only cruel, but potentially criminal." He ordered Giggles and Grins Entertainment to pay $75,000 in damages. Their insurance company tried to fight it but settled when threatened with a larger civil trial. For Ramona, the judgment was harsher. $150,000 in personal damages, mandatory payment for Meadow's therapy until age 18, and then came the part no one expected. Furthermore, this court issues a restraining order. Mrs. Ramona Hutchinson is prohibited from any contact with the minor child Meadow for 5 years. Ramona gasped, jumping to her feet. "You can't do that. She's my niece. I'm her family." "Family doesn't destroy children, Mrs. Hutchinson. You've proven yourself a danger to this child's emotional well-being. Your access to her is hereby revoked." The money from the lawsuit went straight into 2 accounts: a college fund for Meadow and a therapy fund to ensure she'd have all the support she needed to heal. But the financial settlement was just the beginning of what changed in our lives. Meadow's therapy sessions with Dr. Chen became our Tuesday and Thursday routine. At first, she barely spoke, drawing pictures instead of using words. Slowly, over months, she began to understand that being adopted wasn't something done to her because she was unwanted. It was something done for her because she was precious. "I have 2 families who love me," she told me 6 months after the trial as we made cookies in our kitchen. "My birth parents loved me enough to give me a better life, and you loved me enough to make sure I had one." The impact on Ramona's life was immediate and devastating. 2 weeks after the trial, her husband Paul filed for divorce. During the proceedings, he revealed years of similar cruel behavior he'd ignored or excused. She'd apparently been telling their twins for years that they were superior to Meadow because they were real family. Bridget chose to live with her father full-time. She started spending weekends with us, becoming the big sister Meadow had always wanted. Last month, she helped Meadow practice for her school's talent show, teaching her a dance routine that had the whole auditorium cheering. "Aunt Jules," Bridget said one evening, "I'm sorry I never said anything before. I knew Mom was mean about Meadow, but I didn't know how to stop it." "You're 16, sweetie. It wasn't your job to stop it." But testifying took incredible courage. My mother moved back to Cincinnati permanently, buying a small condo 10 minutes from our house. She picks Meadow up from school twice a week, and they have grandma adventures that usually involve ice cream and too much shopping. "I lost one daughter the day she hurt Meadow," Mom told me, "but I'm not losing my granddaughter or you." Giggles and Grins Entertainment shut down within 3 months of the trial. The local news had picked up the story, and no parent would hire them after that. Dennis Crowell lost his license to work with children and moved out of state. The most unexpected outcome came when other families reached out to us. Parents of adopted children who'd heard about our story, who wanted to connect and share their experiences. What started as coffee meetups in my living room grew into something bigger. We founded the Cincinnati Chosen Families Support Group. Every month, 50 families gather at the community center. Adopted kids meet other adopted kids. Parents share resources and advice. Meadow has become something of a spokesperson, though she'd never use that word. "When someone tries to hurt you with the truth, remember the whole truth," she said at our last meeting, standing confident at 10 years old. My aunt told me I was given away because I wasn't wanted. The whole truth is that I was chosen twice. Once by parents, brave enough to give me more than they had, and once by my mom, who fought for me when the world tried to make me feel small. 3 months ago, the Ohio State Legislature passed Meadows Law, making it a misdemeanor to deliberately humiliate or emotionally abuse a child about their adoption status. The law includes provisions for civil damages and mandatory counseling for offenders. Meadow decided she wanted to write a letter to her birth parents to be given to them through the adoption agency when she turns 18 if they want contact. I helped her write it last week. Dear birth parents, my name is still Meadow, the name you gave me. I'm 10 now and in 5th grade. I love soccer and drawing and my mom's chocolate chip cookies. I have green eyes like you wrote about in your letter and strawberry blonde hair that my mom says shines like copper in the sun. Someone once tried to tell me you didn't want me, but I know better. You wanted me to have everything, even if it meant you couldn't be the ones to give it to me. That's the biggest love there is. Thank you for choosing my mom to be my mom. She fought for me when someone tried to hurt me, and she tells me every day that I'm the best gift anyone ever gave her. I hope someday I can thank you in person. Love, Meadow. As for Ramona, she moved to Arizona alone. She sends letters to Mom sometimes, blaming everyone but herself. Mom throws them away unopened now. Sometimes hate disguised as honesty costs you everything worth having. Last week, Meadow's school had a family heritage project. Kids were supposed to bring in family trees. Meadow brought in 2 trees she'd drawn, their branches intertwining at the top where she'd drawn herself as a bright yellow sun. I'm not torn between 2 families, she explained to her class. I'm the place where 2 kinds of love meet. If you found value in our story, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every adopted child deserves to know they're chosen, not abandoned. Every adoptive parent needs to know their love is real and valid. And everyone needs to understand that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who fights for you, and who loves you when the world tries to tear you down. Please subscribe to our channel for more stories of families who chose love over everything else. Remember, the most beautiful families are often the ones that chose each other.